This is a similar example to the one we showed in the previous video. Here we have an example of a setup where white can achieve a win, but white needs to be very careful here. White needs to seize the opposition here. It's white's turn to act right now, but if white is not careful, it'll be a draw. For example, if white just pushes the pawn right away, c7, then obviously white will lose. Black will simply capture the pawn. White's king is not close enough to support the pawn as it is queen. So that's no good. So let's go back and see another option. Say the king moves to b6. Now this seems like a good move. Now the white's king is supporting the pawn, but as we have learned in previous videos, you need to also have a position. If you don't have a position, in this particular case, it's going to be a draw. So this will result in a draw because black moves into b8. And now the two kings are directly opposed to each other. But unfortunately for white, black has the opposition here, meaning that it's white's turn to act right now. And white must settle for an inferior position by moving away from b6. So now, or push the pawn, of course. But if white pushes the pawn, then it's going to be a draw. As we see, it's a drawing game because black has nowhere to go. So this is no good for white. So let's go back and see what white can do to win this game. So I hope that you've noticed by now that the correct move is actually a6. King moves to a6. Why a6? Because now white has the direct vertical opposition. Okay, so remember we discussed the advantage of opposition. So now white has just achieved direct vertical opposition. Now the fact that white is not protecting the pawn just yet is no problem because black is pretty far away from the pawn as well. So it's not always important to rush to the defense of the pawn, especially if it's not being threatened. So right now the main goal of white is to achieve the direct vertical opposition. Once this position is achieved, wherever black goes, white will just follow black in the same line, opposing black. And so there's nothing black can do to shake off this positional disadvantage that black has by not having the opposition. And so this is going to be a win for white. If black moves into c8, then obviously it's an easy win. But one thing that white should notice is that what if black moves into a8, into the corner? Now, as you can notice, if white were to push the pawn right now, it's going to be a draw because black has nowhere to go. So just pay attention to these things because this is obviously a trap. I mean, the obvious move for black is to move into c8. So black is really trying to be tricky here and trap you and hoping that you're going to push the pawn. But you know better than that. And instead of pushing the pawn, you're simply going to move the queen into c7. Now black is forced into a7. And now white has control of the queening square. So it's an easy win from this point on. So I hope this helps. So the key lesson from this example is achieving direct vertical opposition when the two kings are not close to the pawn. They're a little farther away from the pawn. Okay, so the idea is to have the foresight of achieving the vertical opposition in anticipation of the ensuing battle over controlling the queening square. Right now, neither side controls the queening square, but eventually they'll move closer to the queening square, and white must anticipate that and have the opposition even though they don't yet control the queening square.